Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas, Collins, LLC.
Welcome to the noon meeting of the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge on this Wednesday, August 12th, the virtual meeting as it is. Our speaker today will be Mr. Scott Alswang, who will be introduced in a few minutes. I'm your president. I'm Haggai Davis, welcoming you once again. We're going to start off today. Richard Lipsey will provide us with the invocation, and Jeff Zimmerman will do the pledge and the four-way test.
Thank you, Mr. President. God of all, in these very troubling times in our beloved country, help us to stay focused on the sanctity of all mankind. Remind us for the need of patience, love, humility, and peace. The Hebrew phrase teaches us tikkun olam. It means repair the world. It means justice for all peoples. It means each and every one of us has the responsibility to make our world a better place to live. Fellow Rotarians, this awesome charge is ours. Amen.
And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so now we have a quick announcement about our blood drive next week.
Rotary members and guests. I hope all of y'all are doing well. We have a very important meeting event coming up on Wednesday, August 19th at Drusilla Club. We have our quarterly blood drive, and as one might suspect that the pandemic has created a much greater demand for blood because of the cancellation of blood drives. So our Rotary Club remains very steadfast and committed to serving the community through our blood drives. There's an urgent need, and I would ask for our members and guests that are in attendance today that you consider giving blood. That will be again on August 19th and between the hours of 10 a.m. and 1 o'clock. We've taken great precautions at the location for protection of the proper social protocol with the pandemic issues. We had 26 donors at our last blood drive, which was on Wednesday, May 27th. On behalf of the Rotary Club and the chairman of the blood drive, I'd ask each of you to seriously consider giving, and that there is a great need in the community. You can register online at the Rotary website, or you can call the office. But again, we just ask that you consider giving blood in this important time because of the shortage that is out there. Thank you again, and I appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. And so now our speaker for the day is going to be introduced by Lori. Lori, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Rotarians. I am honored and excited to introduce our distinguished speaker today, my good friend, Scott Alswang. Scott is the Chief Sales Officer for Titan Health and Security Technologies. Titan HST is an emergency mass communication platform, and at this time is providing industry-leading COVID-19 tracing. Scott started his career as a police officer in New Jersey. He soon became a world-traveled security expert. The most fascinating position Scott held, in my opinion, was that he served for 20 years in the U.S. Secret Service. During his time there, Scott protected every U.S. president from Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush. Scott also conducted protective advances for every major foreign head of state. When he retired, he became the assistant to the special agent in charge of the New York office of the Secret Service. This, of course, became the subject for many, if not all, of Scott's stories and jokes. He has a wonderful sense of humor, and I'm not quite sure which of these came first, the humor or the job. I've personally heard several of these stories over the years, some of which would be completely inappropriate to share, but I'll leave it up to Scott which ones he'll tell you today. Scott later joined and led SOS Security and was one of their owners until the company recently sold. So when you walk down Fifth Avenue in New York and you enter those high-end retail stores, such as Gucci or Louis Vuitton, and you see security at the door watching your every move until you leave, that was SOS Security. Scott was elected director of the Association of the Former Agents of the Secret Service in 2009, and it is now comprised of over 3,200 former agents. Scott regularly appears on national and international TV and radio to speak about security issues. I certainly don't want to steal his thunder, but I'll also share with you that he was very good friends with Don Rickles. And again, another reason for Scott's witty sense of humor. I had the pleasure to meet Scott nearly 15 years ago. He and his wife, Karen, one of my dearest friends, live in Boca Raton, where he comes to us live today. So please join me in welcoming Scott to the Rotary stage.
Thanks so much, Lori. I don't know if I could live up to that tremendous intro. Good day, everybody, from Boca Raton, as Lori said. And sadly, we're in the 2020 pandemic. Toilet paper was the new currency for a while, and the shortage of PPE from where else? China. Wow. Rioting, social upheaval, riots in the streets, looting, New York City hotels filled with homeless folks. It's kind of amazing to me because we put a man on the moon, but we can't stop a virus that is destroying and consuming the world. On the flip side, someone invented Zoom, and the stock market's defying gravity. I'd like to personally thank your president and Richard and Lori Lipsey, who I love, and I better get it started soon so I can conserve my time because I can talk. I may be referring to my notes which I feel like Vice President Biden. I may be referring to my notes, so don't hate me because I know it's a topic in the news. Hey, the Secret Service, you elect them and we protect them. Well, a lot of folks like to know how I got into law enforcement. My dad owned a candy store in West Orange, New Jersey. He was a lot like Ralph Cramden. He thought he was going to get rich, and he didn't, but he had a great sense of humor, which I inherited. But I inherited a little bit of more business acumen, which was good for style of life. But my first two jobs, being a police officer and then a Secret Service agent, 27 years in law enforcement, weren't about making money. It was about serving the people and the country and protecting our world's leaders. And that was pretty cool. And my dad had a candy store, and I used to go in there and watch the police officers come in and say, wow, that looks like a real cool job. Later, I said to my dad, why didn't you point out the people buying Barron's in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal? I could have been somebody, but it worked out well. I used to sit in my high school and I could see the World Trade Center from there. I grew up in West Orange, New Jersey, and I was a cop there from age 20. First Jewish cop in West Orange. Hill Street Jews, I might as well say it, for those of you who remember the television show. I guess it was Blues. Anyway, I used to sit in the World Trade Center in my high school class, look at the World Trade Center and say, and I knew the Secret Service was in the U.S. Custom House. And I always used to say, I wanted to be a Secret Service agent after being a police officer. And I think it's because of the role of the sadness of John F. Kennedy's assassination, which I know Richard was part of that administration. And I wrote to the Secret Service when I was 9 years old and said I wanted to be an agent, and someone must have been bored and wrote back, be a good boy. Well, essentially I was. So I was a cop. I was the first cop with a master's degree. I was always in a hurry. I went to college and graduated with a bachelor's in 3 years and then a master's in 2 while going to the police academy during the day. I started out in patrol. Sadly, there was in 2 shootings. I'm okay. Some people weren't okay. I was in a house fire where everybody almost passed away, and I delivered a baby and spoke to that baby 20 years later, which was pretty cool. Talk about a small world. And I also became a juvenile detective. And while I was a juvenile detective, I actually substitute taught in high schools and talked to them about being involved with police officers at a young age, kind of setting their path in life to how they would interact with a police officer. I got, sadly, John Hinckley was a fairly good shot. He shot my hero, President Reagan, who's, I don't want to go to politics, but I have my Ronald Reagan tie on. And I was appointed as special agent on 12/12/83, Frank Sinatra's birthday. And as Lori said, I became friends with Don Rickles and Frank Sinatra, and I got to see them many, many times. And if we have time, I'll tell you that story. Anyway, the Secret Service. What's the Secret Service? Well, it was founded in 1865, and it was the oldest federal law enforcement agency in our history. It was founded because of counterfeit money. There was a million different types of currency that weren't going to the U.S. Treasury, and that was an issue. So they brought in operatives, undercover operatives, Secret Service. They ferreted out counterfeit money, a crime that we still have investigative authority over to this day. Later on, when Lincoln was shot in 1865, they started these operatives and brought them in, and they eventually became the Secret Service as we know it today, protecting the president. We protected the president, but we kept our dual mission of criminal investigation and protection. So we were part of the Treasury back then prior to 9/11, and we investigated counterfeit money. And then as time went by and the financial instruments that were used to perpetrate crime and also be used as currency, like credit cards, electronic wiring of money, we got into, under President Bush's first term, started the Electronic Crimes Task Forces, which not only ferreted out cybercrime, bank fraud, credit card fraud, foreign influence corruption acts, and threats against the president. They teach police departments, and we liaison with them, and also deal with the national exploited and missing children and try to help them find these poor kids. On February 26, 1993, I guess I had a bad day, but it was a good day because I lived. The Secret Service's fleet was in the World Trade Center. Our parking garage was on B2, and it was enclosed by a chain link fence. As I had come back from the police commissioner's office and from the FBI terrorist task force during the height of the war in Macedonia, I was in the protective intelligence squad, which ferreted out threats against foreign dignitaries, which we also, the Secret Service protects all foreign dignitaries who step on U.S. soil. And as Lori said, I had the pleasure of protecting many of the leaders. As a Jewish guy who didn't speak Hebrew, they still thought, let's put the Jewish kid with the Israelis. And so I was with every Israeli head of state from 1983 until I retired in 2004, and made some tremendous friends in Israel, in the Mossad, in the Shin Bet, and the Shabbat, and the military. Some tremendous liaisons, friendships, business relationships, etc. And I got to travel all over the world. At any rate, in 1993, I came back from the police academy, the police commissioner's office, and the FBI. Parked the car. 2 other agents, a guy and a gal, were standing by the fire exit. And when I put the car in park, the Ramsey Yossef's truck fertilizer bomb blew up. I was blown up upside down in the passenger seat floor like a turtle, and didn't know what the heck was going on. I thought that I hit a tire compressor and I blew up the World Trade Center, and I didn't know how I was going to explain it. It was a little scary to me. As it turned out, it wasn't me. It was Ramsey Yossef. We survived. It wasn't a great day, hospitalized, etc. And after we recovered, they made us critical incident counselors and taught us how to help others in these types of situations. And sadly, in 1995, Oklahoma City's federal building was blown up by Timothy McVeigh. And that next morning, myself and the 2 others I was with ended up in Oklahoma City to try to help the 6 agents that we lost, one of whom was Al Witcher, who was a dear friend and neighbor of mine in New Jersey. We worked together in the New York field office. And here I am sitting in his house with his wife and kids. It was really sad. And I also sadly had the honor of hearing President Clinton eulogize Alan at his funeral. It was the first time that I actually sat while a president spoke. It was a tough week, but it was an amazing week of hope and inspiration. I was with the DEA's family, a drug enforcement agent's family. His wife was a executive assistant there, and she perished. And everything takes place in the kitchen. So when me and the other agent walked into the kitchen, everybody was there eating, drinking coffee. And they said, "Who are you?" And we told them, and they said, "Do you want anything?" And I said, "How about a cup of coffee?" And they're like, "You sound like Paul Reiser from Mad About You." I don't know if anybody recalls that old television show. And I said, "Well, you haven't met enough New Yorkers to realize this is how we all talk." The next tragic incident, obviously, was 9/11. On 9/11, I got lucky. And why? Because of the Israelis. Netanyahu was coming in, and I insisted that I be on the detail. They were coming in for the United Nations General Assembly around September 23rd, 24th. This United Nations General Assembly was canceled first time in history. I worked 20 of them, from UN 40 to UN 60. At any rate, on September 11th, I had the Prime Minister of Cyprus and his wife coming in. And I wanted to tell Mrs. Cyprus what an amazing woman she had been for a host of reasons on a prior visit, and that I had visited her country and went on a cruise and how special it was. And obviously that detail was canceled as they went to Canada because of 9/11. We were at a command post in the Waldorf Astoria. We heard what happened. We stayed put, and then we eventually went down to the site. The next 6 weeks, we were the only 16 agents, armed, vests, equipment, vehicles, until they could bring up proper stuff from DC. So we brought in the world's leaders, Jacques Chirac of France, Tony Blair of the UK, and we toured them around the site and met with Mayor Giuliani at the grieving site on the West Side Highway. As I said, another sad time, but tremendous feeling of democracy, of hope, and of a good future. A couple of things I wanted to say: that post 9/11, we became part of the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and we were made responsible for what they call the NSSE, the National Special Security Events, such as the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the inaugural. On 9/11, the first NSSCE was at the World Series at Yankee Stadium. I was in charge of the LZ, the landing site where the helicopters would come in. And later on, after they landed, I went in with the detail, and it reminded me of a story that I had heard when I was with President Bush when he was out of office at the Ritz-Carlton in Royal Plantation, Georgia. And he was asked what his most feared moment was as president, and everybody assumed it was 9/11, and he told the crowd that. And he said, "Really, actually, it wasn't that. What it was throwing out the first pitch after 9/11 at the World Series in Yankee Stadium with 60,000 people watching." And he was doing pretty good for a guy who owned the Texas Rangers prior to becoming president. And he was practicing. He had his Yankees jacket on, and Derek Jeter came up to him and said, "Hey, Mr. President, you going to throw that ball from the mound?" And he's like, "Yeah, why?" He says, "Well, don't bounce it." And Bush said that was the scariest moment of his life when he went out there, and he didn't bounce the ball, by the way. Just take a look here. So how do you become a Secret Service agent? I tell people you have to fail 3 psychologicals in a row. No, generally a bachelor's degree, an advanced degree. I had a graduate degree in criminal justice. The days of us hiring, or the Secret Service hiring people in that field of law enforcement, are still there, but today's crime is prevented on a keyboard, on a computer. electronic crimes. So we hire a lot of kids that are willing to use their computer skills, their investigatory skills, their protective school, the protection measures they're taught in school, in our school, and fight crime with a computer, but then go out with the gun and arrest the bad guys. So it's a pretty interesting dichotomy, but the dual mission of training as a criminal investigator and then protecting the president and understanding what it takes in the advance work to prepare for a visit, that criminal investigatory skills help. So you go to two schools once you're accepted. When I came in, my class was Special Agent Training Course 91. They're up to 327. It's only 24 agents to a class. And when I was on, there was about 1,500 agents. Now there's about 3,200. We picked up responsibility for a lot more protectees. The president has a lot of kids, grandkids, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, et cetera. So I think at this time we have about 42 protectees, which is very, very large. After you're accepted, the first school you go to is the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. And it's where they teach you to be a criminal investigator. The second one is Special Agent Training Course, where you do AOPs, attack on the principal, mock assassination attempts, that type of thing, to prepare you for actually being in the field. Some of the methodology that the Secret Service uses is 360-degree protection, outer, middle, and inner perimeter. On the outer perimeters, it's generally police and EMTs and paramedics and emergency management people. The middle perimeter is generally where the uniformed division of the Secret Service, and I'm sure you saw in the news, one of our officers at the White House shot someone. Not sure of all the details. Hopefully it was a good shooting. White House is a big target. You saw what happened a few weeks ago, right or wrongly. And anyway, to continue, both schools train you for these different types of scenarios. On the middle perimeter, there's some agents, but there's mainly uniformed division officers using the magnetometers to let the crowds in. And then on the inner perimeter, they're the Secret Service agents and also CSU agents, counter surveillance agents, who are watching the people that might be watching us. If there's, God forbid, an attack, it's sound off, cover, and evacuate. Sound off, gun, whatever the threat is, cover, take the protectee away, and evacuate. And the counter assault unit, counter assault team, CAT, stays and fights. Everybody else, we go. Which wasn't a bad job for me because when the trouble hit, we left and we didn't have to stay and fight. Others did. At any rate, Jerry Parr, who famously pushed President Reagan into the car, probably saved his life, and then took him to GW. He said to a graduating class of SATC agents that just as hard as they trained at great physical fitness, mental pressures they had been put under, all the schooling and testing, what they were learning how to protect not only our candidates. After Bobby Kennedy, we started the Candidate Nominee Protection Division when he was assassinated. So we protect all the major candidates that qualify to be protected. Just an example, in 92, I was with Clinton. In 84, I was with Jesse Jackson. In 88, I was with Pat Robertson, that type of thing. Just as we prepare, Jerry Parr said, across the river, across the ocean, across the sandbox, there are other people in a room that were going to fight us. They were learning how to fight us. They were learning how to wear a suicide vest, whether they were a male or a female or a child, sadly. So when you have an assailant or an attacker that's willing to give up their life to go to heaven for virgins or whatever their belief is, that's a tough battle to fight, because generally you're there to try to save someone else's life and to save your own. After so 9/11, I'm sorry, we ended up, yeah. So I said we went and brought the world's leaders around to see the tragedy. After 9/11, I went with President Clinton, former President Clinton. I was with him the first day out of office, and I traveled the world with him. And I traveled the world previously, but not like this man traveled. And it was first class travel. We used a lot of OPJ, other people's jets, which is a good thing if you got it. And we went to good, bad, and ugly places. I think the saddest one, but yet it was interesting, was Jaipur, India, after an earthquake that killed 50,000 people. But there was tremendous support for those people, and during a catastrophe, everybody kind of, and from your hurricanes down there, I'm new to Florida, so I don't know yet, but you know how people come together, Katrina, et cetera. All right, lastly, I want to tell you a couple stories. Some are serious, some are fast, and I'll make this quick. And Hagi, you tell me when I have to stop. You said 30 minutes, so I have 5 minutes. President Ford, who I became very close to, and his wife, Betty, they used to come up every year for Thanksgiving, and I'd spend Thanksgiving with them, going to Broadway shows and having a good old time, because we protected past presidents as well. I was with Lady Bird a few times, which was interesting, out bra shopping. But anyway, President Ford was going to dinner with Sandy Weil, the former CEO of Citi, and founder of Shearson Lehman, and a philanthropy guy, now billionaire, who's still alive. And they were going to Pramola on First Avenue. I went there prior to do the advance. I spoke to the waiters, the people, found out where the men's and ladies' room were, the escape route, a hard room, a lot of stuff for just a little tiny restaurant. And I left pretty assured that everything would be calm and collective, and that President and Sandy Weil be in a corner eating, and that no one would probably even know who they were. And my dad was ill, and I called into the field office and said, I can't make it tonight. And so I briefed Jimmy Dobson, a friend of mine, exactly what occurred. And of course, Jimmy, being a former cop, DEA agent, and Secret Service, said, any free food? And I said, I'm not sure. You could sit at the bar. There's 2 seats at the bar, and you can keep an eye on them. Well, when President Ford and Sandy Weil sat down, the owner of the place came over to Jimmy and said, I probably should have told that other guy this, but the waiter came to me and said, I'm taking off tonight because the other waiter is going to shoot everybody in the restaurant. And he said, go back to work. I shouldn't have probably said go back to work. So Jimmy and the other agent ran into the kitchen. The guy was coming out with a 38 loaded with bullets in his pocket, and he was ready to rumble. They took him down, they arrested him, and I got a very nasty call from Jimmy the next day. But President Ford never knew it happened, but I was able to tell Sandy Weil the story, and as you can imagine, he was pretty happy about that. I also peed on Hillary Clinton on her feet. Now, I didn't mean to, but I did. We were going to Macedonia during the height of the war on a military plane. You know, I'm not sure if you remember, she claimed that she was shot at on one flight, and they said that didn't happen. Well, it did happen on our flight. And I was the shift leader, and it was going to be about 130 degrees there. So I was putting my vest on, and I said, you know what, I better go pee. But what they do is put in seats because it's usually used for cargo, so they're not comfortable. And then they put a portable Johnny in there, and I couldn't see. And I had to open the door, and then I got my aim. But when I came out, I saw she was sleeping with barefoot. And yes, I did pee on her. I didn't tell her that, though. On the way back, she made us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so she was pretty nice. One of my favorite Reagan stories is my friend Jan, who just survived cancer, great guy, helped me get on the job. He was on Reagan's detail for 8 years. And they were out at the ranch, and Reagan had terrible eyesight. He was wearing his contact. He was wearing, probably wasn't wearing his contacts. He came out with a rifle, and the shift's like, Mr. President, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm mad at Nancy for something, which was rare because he did love her. And he said, I want to shoot some birds. And so the agents just looked at each other, and he started shooting birds. And the birds, they might as well have been smoking cigarettes because they didn't realize they were being shot at. And my friend Jan kind of snickered. And Reagan said, well, could you do it any better? And Jan got a lucky shot because we were using 357 wheel revolver guns then. Took out his gun, shot the bird, it came down. Everybody looked at Reagan, and Reagan just said, well, that's what I pay you guys for. And he turned around and went back in. And I thought that was a great story. Let me see here. So on the criminal side, one last story. We got a call one Friday night. It's always a Friday night. I was in the counterfeit squad from New Haven. They said, hey, this guy bought counterfeit money from a guy named Bomber, and we caught him. And now we're going to try to get him to do a deal and lock up Bomber at 143rd and Broadway in Harlem. So we got there, and I was in an unmarked car. The deal went down. I jumped out of the car. We just got 6 hours then. And in the middle of this summer street, loaded, I'm like down on the ground. And he's like, don't shoot, man. Don't pull a Rodney King on me. Don't do a Rodney King on me. Anyway, I grab him. I throw him in the back seat. I handcuff him. I start searching him. And then I have to search him down there. And he goes, oh, man, don't search me down there. I'm like, well, why not? He goes, I'm HIV positive. I go, really? He goes, no, April Fools. And I said, this guy's a card. We got him into the field office, and I had him handcuffed to a pole, and I see him, and I'm like, what's up? I said, first of all, how'd you get your nickname Bomber? And he said, well, when I was little, I took big ones, and my dad said, there goes another bomber. I said, all right, I felt a little better that he wasn't a real bomber. And then I said, what are you doing? He said, I just wrote a song. I said, what's the song? He said, sitting in the office of the Secret Service, paranoid, angry, and extremely nervous. Now, when I tell you this guy was a card, he was a card. I said, Bomber, as we worked with him and locked up a lot of counterfeiters and finally got to the source, I said, Bomber, what's a guy like you do for taxes? He says, taxes? I'm crime, and crime don't pay. I mean, this guy was just amazing. So he wouldn't do any more work till we got him a pizza. We were on the Grand Concourse, and it was freezing. I made him go in. I gave him $20. He comes out. We eat the pizza. I said, Bomber, throw this in the garbage. I hear the door open and close. I go, what did you do? He goes, oh, it's a good trick. You just throw it under the car. Nobody knows that you did it. I said, Bomber, that's littering. He goes, hey, man, you stopped me from doing felonies. He says, littering's got to go down a line. We can do that another time. At any rate, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I hope I entertained you a little bit and gave you some guidance on what the Secret Service does.
That was awesome. I really enjoyed the Hillary Clinton story.
Okay.
See her on camera and not have an image of you.
Sorry.
No, that's great. That's great. We do have a few questions. One of them, Jeff Simmons, can you tell us what kind of firearms the special agents use, and why do they choose that type of weapons?
Sure. Well, as I said, when we started, we had Model 19 357s, 2.5-inch barrels. And then after extensive research, later on, they went to 6 hours. And we originally had Uzi submachine guns, and then they went to MP5s. And ironically, on that trip to Macedonia, which started in Naples, Italy, I came into the command post, and I went to put the handgun in my holster because they flew the guns over and we went commercial. And I said to A.T. Smith, I said, A.T., how could this gun's not fit in a holster properly? He goes, well, we went from 9mm to 357, and it was just a little off. He goes, just use it. It's the same gun. I'm like, okay. And I said, where's the Uzis? He says, well, we switched to MP5s. I said, well, I was never trained on an MP5. I go, this is great. I'm going to a combat area in Macedonia, and I have 2 guns I don't know how to use. Now, since then, recently, I'm sure Lori and Rich know that the Secret Service, sadly, because 6 Hour used to support my former agents conference, as Lori and Richard do, thank you, our charity, and they switched to Glock. And and they also switched from the MP5s to a different machine gun. I'm not sure. And they still use a 12-gauge shotgun, either with slugs or pellet.
Awesome. John Finan said, thank you for your service. His father served in the Philippines in the Army Air Corps, and his father-in-law in the Navy. What advice would you give young people for considering military service today, and I know you mentioned a little bit about the special services as well. What would you tell young people who are interested in that kind of career?
You know, I think we've had a lot of military and police come into the Secret Service. I think it's a fine career. You know, there's so many American patriots over there. A lot of people don't even know we're at war, and it's very sad. As far as young kids getting into any profession, job, vocation, I think the best advice I could give them is do not go on social media and do stupid things, because it will follow you for the rest of your life. And I say this from authority as a recruiter in the Secret Service, where you have a kid who's a cop and he puts up He's a cop. He's an NYPD officer, whoever he is, and he puts up a picture of himself on Instagram holding 2 guns. That's just not what you do. The other thing is, you can't just be a regular a person that meets the requirements of anything. A bachelor's degree, okay, check. A year experience, check. You have to be exceptional, because for a job like a Secret Service agent, we don't just want someone that has a bachelor's degree. We want someone that has an advanced degree. We want someone that was the captain of their varsity athletic program or team. We want someone who's a valedictorian. We want someone who can speak 2 languages. We want someone who has computer skills. So it's just not being average. You really have to go above average and try not to do stupid things on your social network or when you're behind the wheel of a car.
Okay. We have Karen Profitas as a former White House person. She discovered secret agents were pulling all kind of pranks. Any confessions on practical jokes you might have done?
Well, I know of many. I'll tell you a good one that comes to mind. President Clinton in '92. In fact, when they first said you're going to Arkansas to protect Bill Clinton, I said, who's Bill Clinton? You know, and I found out pretty quick who he was. But I also found out that he's very, very late wherever he goes. And so we were at a hotel, I think we were in Nashville, and he was in his room, and he decided that he was going to take a sauna. And so one of the agents, Gary, I forget his last name now, went down, and it was an hour and a half before he finally got down here. Well, they let Gary know. He got inside that sauna in his suit and tie, stood at attention, and put a little water on his face just as Clinton got there. And he opens the door, Clinton, he walks in, he goes, and Gary says, "Why can't you ever be on time? I just lost 9 pounds." And Clinton was in tears, you know, he couldn't believe it, you know. But
Lori wants to hear the Don Rickles story.
Okay. So it's 1985. It's Reagan's second inaugural. Tom Selleck is running the show. Frank Sinatra's producing it, and it was the coldest inaugural on record. They did not have the parade that year. That's how cold it was. Anyway, I'm in the convention center, and we're getting ready to stand post somewhere, and we had winter coats and scarves and boots and everything else. And Alswang, hey, my last name, I thought they're calling roll, and I'm busy kibitzing with everybody. And guy goes, "Come over here." He says, "You're Alswang, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you're the guy from New York." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, they told me to take care of you." I said, "Okay." And he says, "Yeah, follow me." And we went right to the top of the convention center, and there were a bunch of dressing rooms, and they were empty, and nothing was happening. He goes, "Hey, stay here." I said, "What am I doing?" He goes, "The president might come up here to visit somebody." I'm like, "Okay." 2 hours later, they start bringing in catering, food, booze, everything else. I ate 2 bags of Candy Kisses. My face was blemished. I had pimples everywhere. I threw out the bags so they couldn't find the empty ones. I'm not a dummy. And all of a sudden, they put on the door, Frank Sinatra. I'm at Frank Sinatra's dressing room, and I loved Sinatra as a kid. I wasn't the hippie kind of kid. I was just an old guy at heart. And here comes Frank Sinatra Jr., Dean Martin, Don Rickles, and his wife Barbara. And I'm like, this is good. And they all walk in, but Don and his wife stayed outside, and they said, "Who are you?" I said, "Mr. Rickles, I'm a Jewish kid from Jersey, and you're the best. I'm a Secret Service agent." He goes, "A Jew in the Secret Service? What happened to you?" I said, "I got a bachelor's degree instead of a medical degree." And he says, "Do you have a gun?" I said, "Yeah." So I showed him the gun. He was crying. He brought me into Sinatra, who was having some Campbell's soup, I guess, to soothe his throat. And he said, "Hey, Frank, I got my own guy, Jewish Secret Service. Don't need any Italians. I got the Jewish guy. Show him the gun." Showed him the gun. 3 hours I was in there in tears with these guys, and developed a lifelong friendship with Don. I went to a million shows. We had dinner together. When I got blown up in the '93 bomb, I got home, and my wife said he had called, and I called him back. And he said, "You Jews will do anything for a free meal." And I ended up down at Caesars with him and my wife, and saw him on stage every time. He would just be tremendous to me. And I saw him his last performance with Regis Philbin in New Jersey, actually, Bergen County Pack Center. And he did a tribute to me at the end that everybody was in tears. I mean, it was just unbelievable. The whole audience stood up, and I'm like, I'm not worthy, man. This is the guy doing this stuff. But he was just such a great guy. And in 1995, I had come back from Southern District of New York after testifying against Ramsey Youssef for attempted murder of myself and the 2 other agents. And I went into the Waldorf Towers. My friend David Ibarra, who's listening today, who's the concierge at the Towers for 30 years, and him and I, that was our headquarters, where every foreign dignitary and head of state went. And he said, "Hey, Don is in Peacock Alley, and Barbara just went upstairs. I'm going up to give her a coffee machine." In those days, no Keurigs. And I went upstairs and I knocked on the door with the coffee machine, and Barbara goes, "Scott, what are you doing here?" He gives me a big hug. I said, "Hey, the government's not paying enough. I got to work part-time here at the Waldorf." So we laughed, and she said, "Well, you know, Don's downstairs with Frank, and they're in Peacock Alley, and Don's doing his 80th birthday tomorrow, and they'll stay all night and drink. You got to get Don." I said, "Barb, there's a lot of things I could do as a Secret Service agent, but to get Don Rickles to stop drinking with Frank Sinatra might be difficult." I went down. Don got up. He puts his finger up like a fake gun, and then he hugs me and he brings me over to Sinatra. Sinatra had a lot of Jack Daniels that night. He held my hand for about 5 minutes. Don's like, I'm like, "Hey, who cares? It's Sinatra, you know?" And he says, "Call me tomorrow." I called him in the morning, and he said, "You lost him, didn't you?" I said, "Who?" He said, "I was with King Juan Carlos of Spain." He says, "You lost the king." He says, "He's not in my room." I said, "All right, Don, take it easy." So he says, "Hey, 6 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be leaving to do Frank stuff. Have all your guys outside." So I had about 15 agents outside on 50th Street. Don came out. First guy he saw, he threw him up against the car. He starts frisking him. He goes, "You got me covered?" I said, "I got you." And everybody's laughing. He did a show for about 15 minutes. And then he said, "I got to go." He kisses me on both cheeks. He jumps in a limo. All the agents are mesmerized, looking down as the limo goes. All of a sudden, the limo stops. Rickles jumps out, and he goes, "Bang, bang, you guys suck." And he just jumped back in the limo, and it was just, you know, we were in tears. So sorry, long answer to a quick question. Right. So
That and I'm looking at a lot of the comments. You have a lot of people who are really enjoying everything you're saying. Laurie also said it, and if you got more Reagan stories, we'd love to hear that as well.
let me think for a minute. Well, I will tell you this: as a young kid, and bringing a brand new agent, my first protection assignment was Louisville, Kentucky, and there was a crowd of about 40,000 outside, and it was a state fair, and there was a lot of stuff going on. And when I saw those 3 helicopters coming in for the first time, and then Reagan getting off one of them, it was just bone chilling to me. How amazing and what a strength and a force the United States of America is and was. And there was many of those moments. One of them, there's an aircraft carrier called the Intrepid in New York, and Zachary Fisher, who owned a construction company and started the Homes for Heroes and these places for these poor kids who have PTSD and were amputations and wounded. And it was Reagan's last visit out of office to New York. And Frank O'Donnell, who was just retired from Warner Brothers Security after 20 years, he said, "Oh no, Reagan's eating a lot of ice cream, and Nancy hates when he eats ice cream." So at any rate, he got up there in front of this battleship, aircraft carrier of servicemen and people and high, attendees that were invited. And he said, Mr. Fisher, when I became president, I learned how to salute and who to salute, and they had to be in uniform. And although, Mr. Fisher, you're not in uniform, you've done more than many for most. And tonight, as your former president, sir, I salute you." And when I tell you there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd, to include me, it was the truth. And let me just say this about the Intrepid. With former President Bush, the dad, and we were going to see a demonstration of the Harrier helicopter / jet that just can go vertical. And so I was with the president, and we all had earplugs, which didn't help because of the sound of that. And I said, "Sir, you want earplugs?" He goes, "No, can't have them. It would look stupid on television." Well, we were standing there waiting, and this Harrier came up from below the Intrepid and just hovered there like a hummingbird. And the noise, I'll be honest with you, I ran away. I couldn't take it. It was killing me. And Bush just stood there like this. And afterward, we got in the car, he could barely hear. And I said, how did you do that? He said, because I didn't want the newspapers with this picture the next day. And I'm like, all right, it's not easy being the president, you know? So.
Here's a comment. Alicia Murphy says, when's the book coming out? Because these stories are awesome.
Well, these are just the G-rated ones because Lori wouldn't let me go crazy. But there's a lot of stories. I've been approached, and I can't do it myself. I need a ghostwriter because I'm a storyteller. Although I'm a pretty good writer, I'm more of a storyteller. And Don used to say that to me. And in fact, Don was too, because his 2 books, as he said, sucked, but they paid the mortgage. But I had myself and a few other retired agents working on a miniseries, a Netflix, that kind of thing. I was in one movie. I might as well tout it. It's on Amazon Prime, and if everybody's bored, they can go watch it. It's called Fame Us by Lincoln Fenner, a producer, tremendous guy. And another one that I'm not in, but is a tremendous feel-good movie produced by another dear friend of mine, Joe Gelshin, is Dare to Dream, The Secret to Dream. I think it's Dare to Dream. I'm sorry, with Katie Holmes. But Lincoln's like my child, like my son, and it's an amazing topical film. And I dress up. So
that's awesome, Scott. Cannot thank you enough. You've been wildly entertaining and great stories, and I could not agree more. I would love to read the book with
all right,
a lot more stories and a lot greater detail. And I do hope you do write that book. That would be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's great. It's tough times. Just got to stay strong and fight the fight. And
come to Baton Rouge.
And I'm coming to Baton Rouge. I got invited by some woman, Lori, somebody, I don't know. You know.
Yeah, I think, and Richard might be able to. He can get you in the meeting if you need.
All right, like it. I want to see that office he's in. It looks pretty cool.
Great, love to have you.
All right.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, everybody. Be well, be safe. Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, that's our meeting for today. Next week, our speaker will be Judge Adam Haney, who will be speaking to us about understanding adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs. Thank you again. My name is Haggai Davis, Club President. Mask up, be safe, and have a great day.
Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas, Collins, LLC.